to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Doctor Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. I'm Doctor Squee and this is my show. I hope you're well this fine Sunday morning or whenever you're watching this back. We've got something a little bit different tonight. So we'll warn in advance that viewer discretion is advised in this case because we're going to be talking about a slightly more serious subject matter than sometimes on the Doctor Squee Show. We're going to be talking about to a lovely man. He is the founder of PH Balance, which is a group who does hunt paedophiles. So you can understand why some people might find this sensitive subject. We want to get into kind of why this is making more young people safe and the great work done. But without further ado, please welcome to the Doctor Squee Show, Nicolas Young, aka Taz, as I was just finding out.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you doing today, sir? Yeah,
not too bad, thank you. Good morning down on the plot. So I'm now back home for this.
Fantastic. So you were just telling me, like, before we get onto the matter at hand, a couple of things I did want to discuss with you, but you've just told me about your nickname Taz.
Yeah, many years ago, I was given the nickname Taz because of my, should we say, less than normal abilities sometimes when I get a bit upset and angry. So, yeah, just nickname Taz, as in the Tasmanian Devil, and it's stuck ever since, and I was always known as PH Taz once PH Balance was up and running.
Fantastic. And we've got some good mornings from your friend of mine, Kyle Greenhalf, our social media director here on SW20.
He's a lovely guy, Kyle.
A heart girl, absolutely diamond guy. And we've got Taryn May, morning Taz.
Taryn, I have to say openly, is one of the greatest decoys I've ever known. She's done some absolutely astonishing work protecting children, and I'll love her forever. She's a wonderful character.
Fantastic. Well, if we can first of all just get back to Carl, because something which he told me about is, as well as this, I don't know what the correct term is for what you do in PH Balance. Is it a hobby? Is it career? How would you class it? Vocation?
PH Balance actually isn't running anymore, but when we were running, it was more a case of we wanted to keep as many children safe as possible, and that was our vocation. That was our aim. That was our whole target. The fact that we started catching so many, and it ran into the numbers are absolutely extraordinary. I would say, well, just an incredible number of people we ended up catching all over South Wales and around England, all over the UK. In fact, we travelled everywhere.
Well, if we class that as your vocation, but just quickly, I did want to just get onto something else which you did with Kyle. So you also have a keen eye for photography and did some photography at SW20's event in Pontypool.
That's correct. Yes, I did the concert for Kyle and Deja Vu, and it was a really wonderful night, and sent the pictures off to all the guys, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. So that was nice. It's nice to give something back to somebody like Kyle.
And I could imagine, as rewarding as the other work is, it must be nice to do something which is just about photography and fun.
It is, yeah. I mean, that's also my love is down my allotment. So, you know, things like that. It gets you away from the seriousness of the other aspects of what we do, you know, what we have done in the past. It's a whole different world.
And the good mornings are flooding in for you here. Andrew Simmons says, morning, Nick. As does, Nicole Seawood says, good morning, Dad.
Morning, sweetheart.
So good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's talk about this great work. So what was it which initially inspired you to do this? And had you done any similar work before PH Balance?
I was a prison officer for 20 years. So obviously I'd worked with sex offenders a lot, you know, make no mistakes. But it was a guy called David Poole who contacted me and asked me to go along on a capture that he was doing. He's from Hereford and he was doing a capture in Cardiff. A gentleman, for want of a better phrase, was attempting to meet a 13 or 14-year-old girl. I can't remember the age of the child. And he'd become aware of it. And he asked me if I would go along because this individual was likely to be quite a handful. So we located him not far from the Principality Stadium in his car. So we approached the car and I did what's called a key snatch, which basically I opened his car door and quickly grabbed his car key so that he couldn't run away in his car. And I kept the individual secure while David did the citizen's arrest. And we kept him there until the police arrived. Yeah, he was a handful. So on the way back from there, I was literally talking to a colleague and I said, do you know what, there's nobody doing this in South Wales. There's nobody doing it in Wales, to my knowledge, at the time. Because when I started, there was only about, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe 7 teams, no more than 10 at the most throughout the entire country. And there's nobody doing it in Wales. So that's where the idea, the concept came from. I contacted a couple of people that I knew. They were interested. I put a post on Facebook. And one of the first people that contacted me was a guy called Leighton. And subsequently, Leighton and I created pH Balance. It just went from strength to strength. We ended up with, I don't know, 19, 20 people working for us in the end. It was so prolific, the amount of people we were catching. One team wasn't enough. So we created a second team called pH Balance South Wales. Southwest Wales, sorry, and that was down in Carmarthen. And that was run by a wonderful lady called Emma. Another fantastic decoy. And then we decided that we needed to expand again, and we went to Hereford and created pH Balance Hereford. That was run by a lady called Sarah Hare, who was a wonderful lady who needs another mention shortly with regards to the work she's done with me with BBC.
Yeah.
And we were very fortunate in South Wales. We managed to get hold of a lady called Jackie, who without doubt was the greatest decoy that will ever walk this planet. She saved more children than I've had meals. Just her tolerance of dealing with these creatures and talking to them for hours and hours and hours and days on end. And the evidence that she was able to provide has sent so many people to prison. I mean, we had a 100% success rate with our convictions. And a lot of that was down to Jackie, Sarah and Emma, and they deserve so much credit.
Okay, well, you've given me so much to unpack there. I'm just going to quickly bring in another comment. Andy Bick. No, that's wonderful. It was a pleasure to have worked with Nick on an occasion. Top bloke, even with his T-Rex arms.
Thanks, Andy. You're a good lad.
Well, that's why you need to be the Tasmanian devil. Your arms aren't long enough, so you've got to be a whirlwind. Yeah.
That's actually my nephew, and he's a lovely, lovely lad. He's in a heart of gold.
Fantastic. Well, we did want to so bring it back to your work in prison, working with sex offenders. So something which I was very interested in when you told me about this work is, obviously it sounds like with such a high conviction rate, you do your homework, you make sure these people who are active and are you're going after the right people. When you work with sex offenders in prison, where kind of part of the work is to rehabilitate them, do you see some who are willing to change and that some are making those differences? And how do you kind of like work with that? That must be so difficult.
It's extremely difficult, but there's a thing that I say to a lot of people when they talk to me about this, and this is a conversation I've had many, many times. And there's a group of people in there which do the sex offender treatment program, probation service type, and they do incredible work. They're astonishing people, and I've got nothing but praise for them. However, I said to them one day, there's a lovely lady, I said, excuse me asking, are you gay or straight? And she said, why'd you ask? I said, just asking. She said, I'm straight. I said, if you sat in a classroom for 6 weeks and I was teaching you the stuff that you're teaching these guys, could I teach you to be a lesbian? And she said, well, no, of course not. She said, I'm straight. I said, then why do you think that in 6 weeks you can change these creatures from wanting to have relationships with children to suddenly wanting to have relationships with adults? And she said, my God, Nick, I should have never thought of it that way. But that's the reality of what these sex offender treatment programs are doing.
It's a 6 week program. That's it.
I mean, a 6, 8, 10, whatever it is now. At the time, it's a 6 week program when I was doing it. I'm sure it's very different now since I left the prison service. But that's the reality of it. These people are what they are. They are going to talk to children. It's no pretense about it. You're not going to change that. no matter how many hunting teams are out there doing what they do, and there's well over 100 hunting teams now, and they're doing amazing work. They put so much effort in their own time, using their own money, their own resources. They travel all over the country. You're not going to change these creatures. They are always going to talk to children. They're always going to want to engage with children. I mean, the hunting teams at the moment, we've just entered the 7th month of this year. Now, the hunting teams, as of yesterday, had caught 683 creatures this year live on streams. Now, that's over 100 a month that paedophile hunters are catching all over the country. This is a problem that isn't going to go away. This is a society problem. And no matter how much we do, if the police don't start doing more, it's not going to change. These people want to talk to children. They're going to talk to children. There's nothing anybody can do about it. The only thing we can try and do is what so many wonderful decoys do. And they spend hours and hours and days talking to these creatures so that they're not talking to real children. And that is an incredible thing for them to do. I look at teams like the Angels of Innocence, run by a dear lady called Jodie. And those women, they spend thousands of hours talking to paedophiles just to ensure that they're not talking to real children. And that's amazing. The likes of Sarah and Jackie, the hours they've spent doing it is just, it's mind-blowing to me. People say that the hunters are all heroes and they're brave. They go out and they catch these creatures. They're not heroes and brave. The heroes are the decoys that are doing all the work behind the scenes, that find out all the details. When I was going to catch a person, I could say to Jackie, what's his inside leg measurement? And she'd, bang, there it is. She'd know everything about him. It was just incredible. Then the background work that those girls do is beyond mine and yours comprehension, I can assure you. They're astonishing.
And for you, when you went on that first hunt, so it's something you hadn't done before, you obviously, I think, were probably in a position where you were less apt to be surprised than some people haven't worked with sex offenders before. But what was that like, that kind of first hunt for you?
The physical aspect of it wasn't an issue. I wasn't concerned about the physical aspect because of my training in the prison service and the type of person I was anyway. Violence is unfortunate, but it's just one of those things. I can handle that. It was the sheer, he didn't care. I mean, he was shocked that he was caught and he was frightened that he was caught and he thought he was going to get hurt, but he didn't care the fact that he was planning on totally destroying a child's life. He had no concept of what his actions were going to do to that child for the rest of their lives. And that was the biggest motivation for me. The realization that these creatures are only thinking about themselves and their own, I don't want to use the words, but I'm sure you're aware of what the words I want to use. Their own gratification.
Gratification, I was going to say, might be
it's the only thing that they're interested in. That they're ruining lives. They are truly ruining lives. Can I just give you an example? A really shocking thing that it absolutely destroyed me when I heard about it. In the first 30 days of lockdown in the UK, an incredible 8.8 million searches were done online for child pornography in the first 30 days. Yeah. That's 293,000 searches a day for child pornography in the UK alone. I'm choking up just saying those words. Can you imagine? Every single one of those images is a real bloody child.
Yeah.
That is a real child that has been hurt and is being abused. And there's sick people out there that want to go and look at those images. If anybody needs justification to do what I've done so many of in the past and the wonderful hunters are doing throughout the country, that's enough on its own.
Well, I might, if I may, jump about a little bit, but I did want to ask you about that. So, things you bring up, lockdown. How difficult was it to do the work during lockdown and to keep as many children safe as possible? I suppose it must have been, on one hand, the children are safer in lockdown at home, but then when a child does come out during lockdown, they're more vulnerable, I would imagine.
Yeah, the biggest thing, again, was the decoys, the work of the decoys. They still went right the way through. They never stopped because they knew that these individuals were at home more. They had more time on their hands to concern themselves with how they were going to get their kicks. So the hunters, maybe not doing so much, but the decoys were doing incredible sterling work all over the country. I know the Ages of Innocence were extremely busy, because one thing that they do an awful lot of is they do all the paperwork and all the background work. Sometimes they give it to a hunting team for them to go and catch the individual, but a lot of their work is done on paper. Then they give it to the local police to go and do what the police do, which unfortunately often isn't enough. But you can only do what you can do. But the biggest win in every one of those cases is the fact that they were talking to women. They weren't talking to children. They were talking to women who were very skilled at what they do, very dedicated to what they do, and absolutely determined to prevent that creature from hurting a real child. And that's just it's mind blowing.
That's
They're amazing
amazing.
people.
Yeah, and of course, it's amazing that any one child who's spared that is more than amazing. However, like with these people who do this, did you find that they have one child and they fixate, or do they contact multiple children?
Oh no. Each one of the creatures I've caught over the years, I would say on average, other teams and other hunters may have a different number, but I would say most of them are talking between 5 and 10 people, i.e. decoys or real children. So if you said, just say for example, I caught 100, if you say that each one of those is talking to 10 children, that's 1,000 children
My word.
that potentially we've saved just from those creatures. So if you think about the 700 that have been caught up to now, that's just live stings, by the way. That's not people that have handed over chat logs to the police, and the police have gone and arrested them. And that's not down to teams that have caught these individuals in a private room, because they don't want to publicly do the stings. So you're probably talking 750, maybe even 800 in the first part of this year already. You multiply that by the 10 to 15 that some of them are talking to. That's an awful lot of children that have been saved already this year by people that the police want everybody to stop doing it. They don't want us doing it. They don't want hunters.
No.
I would never understand that. How can they not want hunters when we're making their life very easy? They turn up at a capture that I've done, and I've got a big wad of paper as a chat log and a full set of evidence. The guy comes up, I shake him by the hand. Good morning, officer. This is so and so. There's the chat logs. And he says, "Oh, thanks very much, Nick. I know what your chat logs are like. I know they're going to be spot on. You're under arrest, son, for blah, 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 blah." And they arrest the individual there and then. How easy do you want it?
So do you think that the police on the ground are more helpful than the police as an organization? It sounds like you've got a good working relationship, if I can call it that, with local
do you know what?
individuals.
The officers in uniform, from my experience, 95% of them are fantastic with you. Yeah. That's my personal experience. The ones I've built up relationships with in South Wales have been absolutely outstanding. I can't fault them. When we've gone to different places like Exeter and Birmingham, places like that, we've been to catch them. You do get a slightly different theme there, because obviously those police, they don't know what they're coming to face when they turn up. All they get is a radio call, a paedophile's been caught by a vigilante group, which they love to call us, or and they don't know what they're coming to face. I mean, in Exeter, we had a group of armed officers turn up to come and arrest the creature. Who stood there thinking, "Whoa, hang on a minute, that's the bad guy, not me." And it's when somebody who's 6'9" turns up with a great big weapon across it. Ooh, no, you're okay. It's him over there, mate. He's your problem. Yeah. So the problem becomes it's once they get into suits. Once you look at the suits and the hierarchy, that's where the issues arise. And I can give another cracking example of that. We arrested a guy on Christmas Eve, going back about 3-4 years ago. It's a teacher, and he was arriving he was trying to meet a 14-year-old child in his camper van. Now we'd followed him, we'd monitored him, we knew that he'd gone into Aldi's and he bought a bunch of flowers to give to this child. And then as he came out, we tried to apprehend him. In a vain attempt to escape, he smashed into me with his camper van, damaged my leg quite badly, to the point where he got away. He didn't know, though, that 10 minutes later we were going to knock on his front door and embarrass him there instead. But that's another story, because our decoys had done everything. We knew exactly where he lived.
Yeah.
Now, when we got into the police station, the police officers themselves were fantastic when they arrested him. But when he got to the police station, I was actually labelled, and I'll use the words that he used, grossly inconsiderate for going to catch a creature on Christmas Eve because it would mean that he had to call officers in to deal with that capture. Never mind the poor child that was going to get raped that day, but I was labelled grossly inconsiderate for catching one on Christmas Eve, and then he charged me with assault for grabbing the creature's arm after he had tried to run me over in his camper van.
Yeah.
Totally different to the officers. The officers were, thanks very much, mate. You've done a great job again. Thanks very much. Cheers. But as soon as a suit got hold of me, I was charged with assault.
Jeez, did they go through with the charges in the end?
Oh, yeah. I ended up with an official police caution.
And just on a personal level, is your leg okay? Were you
all right? Yeah, I'm fine, Andy, yeah.
Oh, geez.
So that's what we had to deal with. And that's what we had to deal with as soon as we go to the suits. The officers on the ground, good as gold, cracking blokes. And 95% of them are brilliant blokes. You go to the suits and the hierarchy, which could be a whole nother video call if you want to do that in another time. The hierarchy in the whole system, in the whole of the United Kingdom, is where some of the major players are in child issues and child care issues. The whole establishment is vile.
We don't have time to unpack all that, so I won't go too far down that just because I don't want to say stuff that we haven't got time to back up. Not that you can't. Yeah. But with regards to that, just very quickly then, is there, like, just legally taking the kind of suits out of it for a moment, is there legally, what do you think is the biggest stumbling block for the police to have more powers to work with organizations such as yours?
Red tape.
Red tape.
Red tape. That's the only thing that's stopping them. They could do so much more if they didn't have the red tape they've got to deal with. For example, we can give them a name of somebody, Fred Bloggs. To get Fred Bloggs' details, they would have to then get a court injunction, maybe to track his devices or to trace his phone or to download his phone. You know, they've got to go through all these different bits and pieces. Whereas I could say to Jackie, find everything about him. And within 3 hours, she's saying to me, yeah, he's just asked for you to come and meet a child, Nick. Let's go and get him. There's the difference. We can do and most hunting teams could do in 5 or 6 hours or 3 or 4 days that the police can do in 6 months. That's just a simple fact. We're not governed by that red tape.
But without that red tape, which I do, again, I'm not sort of questioning, I'm just asking questions to learn, nothing else. I don't want to sound like I'm being confrontational, but when you do cut that red tape and you get that information instantly, like how often do you get information from people you didn't intend who do turn out to be not connected to paedophiles?
We used to get, and I still get, only a couple of days ago, we get messages from parents saying, "Oh, my little daughter is talking to somebody called so-and-so. What do I do, Nick?" And I say to them, look, the biggest thing of all is I always say that if I've had to go and catch somebody, it's already gone too far because there's already a victim. There's already a child victim. Or even if decoy has become a victim of this individual because she's got to deal with what's happened. So I always say that prevention is better than us having to go and physically get them. So it comes down to the education, and the education, whether we like it or not, stops us with us as parents. You know, we need to make sure we know what our children are doing online. And that's where a lot of my work done now is focused on trying to educate. I do talks to scout groups and the like, you know, how to keep these children safe online, how to make themselves safe online. And a big part of it is the parents. I mean, most children these days have got a mobile phone. We all know the dangers of mobile phones. They're connected to the internet, they're in chat rooms, etc., etc., etc. But so many parents didn't realize that little Johnny's PlayStation and little Johnny's Xbox, every single game, every single platform they go on has chat rooms connected. Every single one of them, you know. Yeah. And these companies, they're not trying to close these chat rooms down. If you think about it, if you look at, it's hard to get the words across in trying to understand it, because all of this is down to the establishment again, and it's down to the fact that they don't close these sites down. Now, if 8.8 million people try to access child pornography, how many of those are likely to even have been spoken to?
Yeah,
none. But they must know who they are to have the figures. They must have the IP addresses of all those people that try to access those child pornography sites during those first 30 days of lockdown. How many of them have been spoken to? But no, you don't get that. But what you do get is, I mean, I couldn't speak for South Wales. In South Wales, you might get a post on Facebook with 2 burly police officers stood there, chest puffed out, because they've just confiscated an e-scooter off somebody, and they've got it pictured there. They're proud of that. But there's 8.8 million people that search child pornography.
Oh, certainly the way the police money is spent is ridiculous. You know, you can point to that, you can point to the NHS, all these public funds which are just not used in the right areas. So it's the
least funded group of police officers. And the police, not the police officers' fault, they're good guys. Mm. It's the worst funded of all the different, denominations of the work the police does. It's the least funded.
I mean, and it does seem like
£1,500 is spent on each missing child. That's the average. £1,500 by the police.
And I feel like
unless you're Madeleine McCann, then it's 13 million.
Yeah. And I do feel like there would have to be some work if the police were going to work with organizations like yourself. There'd be some kind of like agreement which would have to become between how you work and how they work and all this. Yeah. And I would understand that. But yeah, it does seem like at hand they've got facilities, people are ready to just go. And as opposed to setting up a whole new unit, they assign a couple of officers to work with organisations.
I asked it would be 5 years ago. Saver. I asked the Commissioner for Gwent Police, Jeff Cuthbert, for an interview with him to talk to him about how we could work with Gwent Police. And he said to me, the stuff I put in front of him and the ideas I put in front of him, he loved it. He went to the Chief Constable, never heard another word.
It's how often do we hear after an incident happens as well about all the things that they could have done, and this doesn't even come into it. There's obviously stuff on the ground they could have done to help, but this is a side of it we don't hear about, that the opportunities to work with local organizations. And again, I know there would have to be some sort of agreement to work to the letter of the law kind of with yourselves, but the work you do is amazing.
All they would have to do is give acceptance through guidance, and that's what I asked for Jeff Cuthbert. Accept the fact that these teams aren't going away. They will still do what they're going to do because they're brilliant at what they do. The numbers prove that. But give them guidance as to how you want it done.
Yeah.
Instead of criticizing them, acceptance through guidance, job sorted. You're going to have hundreds and hundreds of paedophiles caught every week, as we currently are seeing now. 100 every month have been caught this year so far. More than 100. 683 as of yesterday.
We've got so much to unpack. Have you got an extra 10 minutes, my friend?
Yeah, I'm fine. I can speak about this for 3 years. It doesn't matter.
Awesome. Well, you might have other plans, though. As amazing as the work you do is. Andy has put another comment, Andy Bick. Groups like these need more help. It's better they catch these animals rather than the children's father and them have to do time due to their actions, which I'm sure all dads out there would happily do to protect their kids. And we've also got from Tyron. Is it Tyron? It's pronounced Taron. Pardon me, Taron. Taron May. Parents should always be educating their children and checking their devices regularly. Yeah, it can be really difficult. I don't want to go into too much because it's not been talked about publicly. But there was a friend of mine who had someone who was trying to groom their child through their phone, and I know they're really responsible. I know they check regularly, and still, even if you check regularly, it can be so difficult. So it is about having that kind of awareness, like not letting the child's embarrassment at getting their phone checked by the kid override making sure they're safe, certainly at a very young age, where they're not kind of maybe where they're more susceptible to being fooled that they can't talk to their parents.
But a lot of those parents, if they spend 10, 15 minutes after this chat looking through apps that are on their phone, like Google Family Link is a well-known one.
Yeah.
It's an application which allows you to virtually control your child's access and other people's access to your child's phone. So you can control the apps, you control. It's like a parental control switch. There's so much in it, and that's just one app. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of apps. All you've got to put is into your Google search, children's child protection online child protection apps, and you'll see a list of 10, 12, 14, 18. There's loads and loads of them. Some of them are purchasable. Obviously, they're slightly better, but you've got to put a price on how important is your child's safety. Get on the applications. Get on, even if you've got a Samsung phone, contact Samsung. They are legally obliged to tell you how you can make your phone safer for your child. Same with Google, same with iPhone. Go on the apps, find out about them, contact your supplier, contact your IP suppliers, ask them how you make it child friendly. And they are legally obliged to inform you and tell you and help you. And they'll even set it up for you if you need to go into the local shop. Spend some time doing it, because that time you spend doing it is going to keep your child alive. I'm going to give you one of the worst things I ever saw. We went to capture a creature, and I'm not sure if it was one that Andy was with us on, but when we caught him and the police searched him afterwards, bear in mind, he brought condoms, he brought razor blades to shave the child before he had sex with her. In the boot of his car, and this should frighten any adult, any human being, in the boot of his car was 2 rolls of duct tape and a set of butcher's knives. Now, that man wasn't planning a bloody barbecue.
Yeah.
You know, that's terrifying.
Just before we go further, just because that's quite a shocking statement. I'm glad you've shared it, because it just shows you how kind of like important this work is. But for anyone who is affected by anything we're talking about, please, I'm sorry, I should have had them on to hand, but please do look out places where you can get support, where you can get help. Like Nick
Contact
says,
me. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, like look at places where you can check on those kind of phone securities, check on places where you can get counseling if your family's been affected by it and are still struggling with some of these issues. Or please reach out to me or to Nick here, and we will pass on some information to you. And as I say, I apologize in advance that I haven't had that to hand, but please, we will get the info to you. Just don't sit with these feelings, because that's when things can get, believe it or not, even worse.
But unfortunately, sometimes you need to hear those sorts of things to realize dangers involved in your child not being closely monitored and you not watching what that child is doing. It's not necessarily your fault. I'm not blaming anybody in particular for all the ones we've caught, but if you can prevent the likes of myself and some of the other hunters from having to go out and catch these creatures, that's far better than the risk of us going out and getting them, or the police. You know, stop your child from talking to them in the first place.
Yeah, certainly. So to get back to the work PH Bounce does, and you talked about the initial hunt that you went on. How do you then turn it into your own organization? How do you start that? How do you build the engine which you have for protecting children?
It was slow, methodical, and it was a case of learning as we went, because I wasn't aware of anybody that had done it previously in Wales, so I had nobody to sort of go to and say, how did you do this? You know, I spoke to a few people, a few well-known hunters from back in the day, and they gave me little snippets of advice, but it was trial and error, basically. I watched other people do captures, and I thought, okay, that worked, but it could have been done like this, and it could have been done like that. So the next few captures that we did, which most of them were down to Jackie doing her amazing work, it was a case of, let's try that. And then we'd record it for ourselves. We never ever did a live sting, but we used to record it, and then we'd look back at it together as a group, and we'd make alterations or changes until we got it to the point where it became second nature, and we were catching 2, 3, 4 weeks and weeks. From there, we realized then it was just going so crazy, so big. That's when we had to expand, and we put another team in West Wales, another team in Hereford, because we didn't have enough hours in the day, what with working 50 hours a week, to still go out and capture the creatures that needed capturing. It was purely that. It was just trial and error and a lot of hard work. Nearly cost me a marriage. I'm not going to lie, it nearly cost me a marriage, because my wife was she was tolerant, but I've got to be honest, I was relentless. I was blitz. It was everything. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people, I either give everything or I give nothing. I can't give that little bit and say that's good enough.
I know what you mean. So with that, obviously I don't want to get too much into your marriage stuff, but when you got to that point, how do you put it down? How do you do such important work, which is going to be all consuming, and then manage to put it down the rest of your day?
Hand on heart, sir, I didn't. I just kept going. I was that focused on what we were going to achieve. I knew that we had a good marriage. I knew that it was just a case of, hold on a minute, I'm not getting as much attention as I used to, you know. And that's she's not here. I can't really, but that's how it came across. But it wasn't long before she started coming on captures with us. She was a fantastic spotter. She used to hang around in car parks in the pouring rain until somebody turned up, and then she'd get on the radio for me and Leighton, and then we'd go across and apprehend them. So she was soon involved, as was my daughter. My daughter would sometimes come along pretending to be the child that they were meeting. So they had a focal point. As they were walking towards her, they didn't have the fun of meeting her. They had the fun of meeting me and Leighton. So, it became a real family, not business, but a family business in the sense that we were all involved. We all made the effort. And to be honest, PH Balance became a family. We don't live in each other's pockets, but all of us now, every one of us, if one of us made a phone call, say, I need you, we'd all be there. We're talking people that live in Carmarthenshire, in Herefordshire, all over the UK in some cases, but we'd all be there for each other. It became such a family, it was such a bond. It was amazing. But you do build that bond up with other teams as well. You start trusting other teams, and you'll get a capture in, say, South Shield, so you might go to Guardians of the North to go and capture them for you rather than you doing it. So it was just relentless. It was as you can imagine, trying to catch 4 a week and go to the police stations and downloading evidence and giving evidence in courts, and it was crazy times, really crazy.
Just a couple of comments we've had in quickly. So we've got Andrew saying, Andrew Simmons, awesome interview, Nick. Your friend of mine, Carl Greencalf, great interview, and thank you to Nick and everyone for keeping children safe. So say we all. And Matthew Young, morning, Dad.
Morning, son.
Yeah, and you were saying about it being a family business now, or family enterprise, shall we say. So to talk a bit about that, because you said about working with the BBC, which I wanted you to talk about. If I can just bundle two questions in together, I wanted you to maybe talk about that, and also how the local society and people locally took to this organisation and these things happening. How was that response?
Working with the BBC was quite incredible. They were very, very good. They didn't have a clue what to expect, in all fairness. They just heard a lot about us because we were in local papers a lot. We caught so many people. So a team of them went to Sarah's house in Herefordshire with me, and they wanted to see how a decoy works. And I suggested to them that they had a stopwatch available. And the lady said, why? You're sure we got plenty of time. I said, you've not got a clue what you're waiting for, love. We started by creating a child decoy, and we put it into a random chat room, as we do with any decoy. They set their stopwatch, and as we entered the room, it took only 7 seconds before the first male started talking to that 13-year-old child. 7 seconds. By a minute and a half, there were 5 talking to the child. After 3 or 4 minutes, they were up to, I think, 19 or 20 males were talking to that child. Sarah maybe had to put me right on that, but it was around that sort of figure. Within 3 or 4 minutes of those 19 being in the room, all trying to chat to the child at the same time, and privately as well, I would say more than 75% of them had already become sexual. Now, from what are you wearing? What size bra do you wear? Have you got a boyfriend? Have you done anything yet? And this was all in front of not live cameras, but they were filming it all as they were interviewing us. And the shock and horror on those poor people's faces, because they'd never seen anything like it. Sarah and I were numb to it. We've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, but they were numb to it. They could not believe what they were witnessing, that many men in that short space of time would want to talk to a child, a minor, about if she had done anything sexually yet. That is quite sickening. And it was one of the things they based their program on, and they did several interviews with me subsequently over different times. With regards to locals, it's not really a thing I like to make big, but you get treated like a bit of a celebrity around Cumbran. People always Taz always. One of the funniest things that ever happened was I was walking through Asda's, and somebody just shouted like, "Oh, that's the paedophile man." I thought, oh dear. About 30 faces all went, Or
Yeah, maybe I don't want it worded quite that way.
Yeah, I'm not really one of those, you know. I'm yeah. Thanks very much. Bye bye. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So little things like
Can we finesse the nickname? I much prefer
yeah,
Taz.
it's one of those moments that you think, yeah, could have done me like that, really, but never mind. But no, there's some good, you know, it is nice, and you do get respected, and that side of things is lovely. But you do walk around looking at people and you judging people, and I have to say, I can spot them a mile away. I can spot them. People, even my wife say, "He's one." I say, "Yeah, you can see it," and that's an awful thing to be able to say, but you really can, because you've done it so many times. You've been around that many of them that you can spot them from 50 yards away.
Just to round things up, I just wanted you to maybe say a bit, like we've already kind of discussed a little bit, but what people can, what's your kind of top tip to keep kids safe? And if someone is worried about their child, what is the first thing they need to do?
First thing they need to do is contact the police, like any shadow of a doubt. Do not delete anything off of your phone, because that is evidence, because you don't know if they've been sending images to the child. Don't open any links, because if you open a link, you are then subsequently doing wrong. You're opening a link of maybe a child pornography image. That, believe it or not, is offence. You can actually end up being charged. So don't open any links that are on your children's phones. The most important thing of all is keep checking your child's devices. Get onto these apps that I've mentioned. Look for them. Spend some time. Contact somebody who might know a bit more about it. Go into the local phone shops. Ask them. Ask your friends and family whatever they've got divided for their children, because this is always going to happen. It has always happened, but now, of course, with the internet and the games and that the kids are playing, everyone is connected to a chat room. As I said, you have got to keep checking devices. It's not nice that you say, I've got to check my child's device so often. Your child isn't necessarily going to like it, but would you rather be and that I would have to close up. Child safety is the biggest and only thing that matters.
I can agree more. Thank you very much for the work that you do. Thank you very much for keeping children safe. You know, I know there's some people when they hear vigilante kind of worry, but it's like you are trying your best to work with the police, and hopefully one day they can make that work and actually look into that and keep more children safe. We just got one last comment before we go. Taz, you're such a wonderful man and you do so much for everyone. Thank you for everything. Tarrant, I can't think of a better way of saying it. Thank you very much, Taz. It's been a pleasure getting to meet you today, and please keep up the great work.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you very much, everyone, for watching today. I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show. And in a world where you can be truly anything, please be kind and keep safe.